So why didn't the turkey eat any food? Well, he was already stuffed. Hey, Jeffs County, welcome back to Turkey Talk. It's that time of the year to start thinking about those holiday meals. I'm Tamara Schubert, your Family Consumer Science Educator for NMSU and Chaves County Cooperative Extension Service. Join us all month, and if you missed last week, you can always go back and watch it on our YouTube or our Facebook, where we're talking the do's, the don'ts, and the how-tos leading up to the big Thanksgiving meal. So last week we covered purchasing a turkey, talked about fresh and frozen and the advantages and the disadvantages of both of those. So this week, let's talk food safety. And food safety is important no matter who we are. So the first step in food safety is cleaning. So anytime we're in the kitchen, the first thing that we want to do is wash our hands. Now with COVID, we saw a lot of hand sanitizers and stuff coming out, and that's great if we're on the go and don't have access to soap or water. But the best thing is soap and water, and to wash away those germs and bacteria. So what I used to tell kids all the time is it's 20 seconds. You scrub in between and you scrub up your arms. Remember that bracelets, watches, rings, things like that tend to collect bacteria and germs. So if we're cooking in the kitchen, we may want to take those things off and wash our hands up our wrists and partway up our arms. Remember, hot soapy water and 20 seconds each, and that's twice through the happy birthday song if you want to sing. I used to tell kids all the time that they're not clean unless I hear you sing. So the other thing that we want to look at when it comes to cleaning is our utensils and our appliances that we use in our kitchen. They should be washed in the hottest water that we can stand. We want to scrape off any food into the trash or the garbage disposal and rinse those dishes and utensils before putting them in our wash water. Every time we cut something on a cutting board, we do want to wash that cutting board before we move to the next item. But this also goes for our countertops and our appliances. So our suggestion is to keep a solution of bleach it's a bleach and water, in the kitchen to sanitize those surfaces. The other thing that we want to think about when we are cleaning is what we're cleaning with. So most of us will have a wash rag or a sponge, something like that in the kitchen. Here's the rule of thumb for me. If you are washing your dishes, your countertops, your appliances with a wash rag, these are good for about a day. Maybe even if you've got something real heavy, they're good to wash dinner dishes and wipe down the kitchen, and then they go in the laundry. The more that we use our rags, the more germs that we run the risk of spreading around the kitchen because they catch right on our cloth. Same thing with sponges. You can dry with paper towels, you can wipe them down with paper towels, they're disposable. But if you're using something that's rewashable, keep it for about a time or a day and then throw those things in the wash. So the other thing to talk about when it comes to cleaning is when we do our turkey. So bacteria can be present on the inside and the outside of our meats. The only way to kill that is to cooking it to the proper temperature. So don't wash your birds. Washing your birds can actually spread those bacteria and those germs up to 3 feet away in your kitchen from the water splatter and things. So don't wash your birds, wash your hands, and wash your surfaces. Remember, the only way to kill that bacteria is by cooking it to the proper temperatures. The next thing we're going to talk about, so that was cleaning, we want to talk about separating. So cross-contamination in the kitchen is where you take a bacteria or a germ from one thing and you distribute it to another. So when we talk about separation, we're really talking separation in like 3 different things. So we want to separate in the store. That's our first place of defense. So we want to place meats in bags and in the bottom of our shopping cart or away from everything else. So if you've got lots of meat, that bottom rack is really great. If they drip, if they do something, they're not going to get on your other foods. Place them in a bag, that's even better. It conceals all those juices together. So the first place to separate is in the store. The second place to separate is in your fridge. So we want to store or thaw our meat on the lowest possible shelf. This is going to prevent juices from crossing onto any other foods that may not be cooked to that temperature. But also, if we've got a spill or something in the refrigerator, we want to clean that up right away. Again, dry towels, rags, something like that to clean those up. That soapy water can be used as well to clean those up. But we want to store our meats with our juices and stuff on the very lowest shelf. If you catch last week, that's also the coldest part of your refrigerator, which is great for your meats. The other thing that we want to talk about when we talk about separating is during the cooking process. So we want really 2 separate cutting boards in our kitchen. And it's even better if they're labeled, color sorted, something like that, so you know. But we want one for meats and we want one for vegetables. We want to keep those done. You may even choose to have more. I think in my kitchen we have 4 or 5 because I have some stuff for cooked and I have some stuff for uncooked and I have some for cheeses and I've got some for breads. But keep them separated. So if you use a utensil to cut up meat that's not cooked and then use that same utensil to cut it once it is cooked, you've transferred those bacteria and the germs. The most common thing that we see in this is when we grill. So we put food on a cookie sheet or a platter or something, we take it out to the grill, we set that platter on the side, we cook the meat, and then we're putting the done meat right back on that platter with the uncooked meat juices. So we're putting it right back in those germs and the bacteria. It's never having a chance to get killed at those proper temperatures. So separate utensils, separate cutting boards, separate platters for those things that may be cooked and uncooked, meats and vegetables. Even if you're cutting several different vegetables, I like to wipe mine off in between just because I've got a juice thing going on. But separate definitely for meats and vegetables and anything else you may be cutting. The next thing we want to talk about is cooking. Okay, so your turkey's not safe until it reaches an internal temperature of 165 degrees. You can't go off the color on the outside. Don't go off of whether those juices run clear or not. You want your birds cooked to 165, and that's all poultry. That's even your chickens. 165 degrees to an internal temperature. And the only way to do that is to use a thermometer. So they come in lots of different things. You've got some with dials, you've got some like this one that it's automatic. It just shows you the number of what it is. But you do want to keep a thermometer in your kitchen to check those. And when it comes to our turkeys, we want to check them in 3 different places. We want to check them at the thickest part of the breast, in between the drumstick and the turkey, and in between the wing and the turkey. We want to make sure that we're staying off the bone because those bones are going to increase our temperature. And we want to remove this turkey. So one thing that's happened with recipes over the last couple of years is a lot of recipes you will see when it comes to meats and stuff like that, you will see that it has decreased the time, but on there now is a rest time. So we do want to pull our turkeys out of the oven and let it stand for 20 minutes before carving it. That extra 20 minutes keeps those temperatures rising in the bird and allows that to reach that higher temperature. And you'll see that in a lot of recipes now. Your times might have changed, but it increased that rest time, and that's why when we pull these big birds out of the refrigerator, that temperature stays up and it cooks for a little while longer. So that also allows all your juices to settle in that turkey. So we've talked about cleaning, we've talked about separating, we talked about cooking. Let's talk about chilling. So all of us in the holidays, we like to take our time around the dinner table. We like to visit, we like to talk. Take your time around the dinner table, but don't take your time getting your leftovers to the refrigerator. We want all of our leftovers to be refrigerated within 2 hours. But this also goes from getting it from the grocery store to the house. So if you've got some other errands to make, do those before you go grocery shopping, or take an ice chest with you to keep your cold foods cold and out of that danger zone. We want to make sure that they're in a refrigerator and chilled to the proper temperature within the 2 hours. And so depending on what carriers we have or what storage containers we're going to use, it's important to use shallow containers that allow the food to cool a little bit more before we put it in the refrigerator. When we put hot stuff in our refrigerator, it increases the temperature of our refrigerator, and that also increases the other foods that are in our refrigerator. So we want to store our leftovers in shallow containers, and we want them within 2 hours into the refrigerator. The other thing that we want to do is look at the amount of time that we have leftovers. So leftovers are usually good, at least for Thanksgiving, are going to be good until Sunday. So those 2 to 3 days after Thanksgiving is when our leftovers are good in our refrigerator. And the same rule of thumb when it goes to cooking those goes for leftovers too. We want those leftovers to still reach the internal temperature of 165, just like we did when we cooked our poultry. And here's the thing, don't heat and reheat. If you've got leftovers, make them in shallow dishes to reheat them. And we want to eat whatever we reheat or dispose of it. So increasing the temperature, so we have it in the refrigerator. When we increase it to eat it as a leftover, right? We want to eat all of those. When the temperature drops back down, we put that in the refrigerator and then we're going back up to heat it up the next time. Our foods are staying within the danger zone longer than what we want them to. So reheat them once and eat them, and reheat just what we need to do. So if you're traveling after the holidays, make sure you pack a cooler. Again, we want those foods to stay at the proper temperature, cold enough to at least stunt bacterial growth. And that is at 2 hours. So if you're traveling somewhere after Thanksgiving, make sure you pack a cooler and again, reheat those to the proper temperature. Remember that bacteria causes foodborne illnesses cannot be smelled or tasted. So it's important for us to take some of those precautions beforehand. Join us next week. We will talk more turkey talk and have more ideas and tips and ideas for you to try this holiday season.